Hey, what's going on, guys? Today's video is going to be covering the recent reveal of the Steam Deck and how it compares to the recent reveal of the OLED Switch. Now that said, before I get comments stating that these are unfair comparisons, I'm going to say that price is a huge factor when considering this type of stuff, as is functionality. You can't tell me it's not fair because one's more powerful than the other. That's a little bit of a cheeky argument. Realistically, the Steam Deck does seem to be a direct competitor and pose a threat to the Switch in terms of functionality, so I think this is a very, very important comparison to make. These two are coming out around the same time, they're being priced pretty similarly, and like I said, very similar functionality. Anyways, that said, make sure to sit back, relax, and let's talk. Okay, so first of all, the Steam Deck, to oversimplify, is a handheld system gaming unit that allows you to take your Steam games on the go. The unit itself bears a striking resemblance to the Switch, with a few obvious caveats being the trackpads on the front and the mappable buttons on the back. It's roughly the same size as the regular Switch or OLED models, albeit slightly heavier, about half a pound, with a 7-inch 1280 by 800 pixel screen, 16 gigabytes of RAM, a very modern RDNA 2 GPU, and a respectable AMD Zen 2 CPU. The screen is LCD, unlike the OLED Switch, and it does have capabilities to be docked, but the dock will be sold separately. Battery life is also less than the Switch if you don't consider the amount of differences between games. I mean, of course, the battery is going to run longer on the Switch because a lot of the games are at 30 FPS with cell shading, as opposed to this console, which is running some of the most modern AAA titles. But that's neither here nor there. You also have the option of limiting frame rates to 30 FPS to conserve battery as well. The console also features Bluetooth 5.0 and is nowhere near as restrictive as your run-of-the-mill console. For example, you'll be able to buy games from Epic using it and even install Windows and other compatible operating systems and literally use it as a computer, as that's basically what it is. It's a modestly optimized gaming PC in your hands. You want to play some ROM hacks? You'll be able to download them and play them. How about browser-based games? Yep. Essentially, in terms of versatility, it's far superior to most consoles since it doesn't need to be jailbroken or anything like that. Other than that, there will be three very similar models, with the only real difference being internal storage capacity. There's the base model, which is 64 gigabytes at $400 USD. There's the 256 gig model, which will be 530 USD, and the 512 gig model, which will be 650 USD. There is also a SD card slot, so if you want to get a lower model and then add storage to it, you always have that option as well. It also doesn't have Joy-Cons or anything like that, so it's pretty much meant to be played like a Switch Lite, unless you do connect it to your TV or computer monitor. There are also a ton of other caveats to the system, including trackpads allowing for mouse input, the gyro sensor, the analog sticks and trackpads actually have pressure sensitivity, and more. For a full list of features and all the aspects to this thing, more than I can cover in one video, I'll leave IGN's video covering it solely. We're here to sort of compare. One thing I think a lot of people are forgetting is that some people might not have a good PC to play Steam games, so this might be their way to be able to play Steam games, albeit less well than your average gaming PC, but it's still better than having to spend a lot of money. For example, you could spend $700 on a laptop, and it's going to be less geared towards gaming than this. At least in Canada. That said, how does this thing stack up to the OLED Switch, and what are my opinions on it and how it relates to it? Well, the Switch has 4 gigabytes of RAM, a much older GPU. The OLED model does have an OLED screen, so if that's something that you like more, then that would be a disadvantage for the Steam Deck. It has the same internal storage if you're talking about the OLED model as the base model of the Steam Deck. It also features Bluetooth 4.1 instead of 5.0, but that's not really a big deal. The battery life is slightly better. Depending on the game, it could end up netting you an extra hour. And overall, the OLED Switch is basically just a regular Switch with an OLED screen. If you want to see more info about the OLED Switch and my thoughts on it, you can check out this video linked in the description. Now, for me personally, and again, this is a personal issue, I generally don't like how large these handhelds are, but I do understand that they must be bigger than, let's say, a 3DS to compensate for the increased processing power. But when it comes to the Switch, for example, many smartphones that you might even have are more powerful than the Switch in terms of processing. They're just bogged down by not fully being optimized for gaming. The reason I don't like large handhelds is that they don't really feel like handhelds. They feel like these big awkward pieces of tech that you're kind of nervous to take outside because they're pretty pricey and you don't want to ruin them. That said, the Steam Deck absolutely destroys the Switch in terms of its processing power, and while it's nowhere near as powerful as a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, I do think that if we're solely going on the basis of wanting a portable system, which most people use as the ultimate excuse for the Nintendo Switch's subpar performance in many areas, then I gotta say that the OLED model isn't looking so good. Not only will this thing allow me to take my Steam games on the go and presumably allow me to utilize cloud saves, I could play League of Legends, anything from the Epic Store, ROMs, and pretty much do anything a computer can do. I mean, hell, you can even play RuneScape on this thing. Couple that with the fact that it's only going to be $50 more than the Switch, but will literally have 4 times the RAM and much better specs. It seems worth it to me if being able to bring your PC games on the go is something you want to do, or if you just don't have a gaming PC. I cannot count how many people can't buy certain games, especially if you're a fan of my channel, you'll know we cover monster taming games. There are so many games that are just not out for Switch that people would really want to play. This could be a great way for you to be able to play those PC only games without having to spend $1,000 Canadian on a gaming rig. And that's on the cheap side here in Canada. I spent like $1,100 on mine like 6 years ago and I had to build it. To me, if it's going to be big and clunky, it better be powerful. And in this case, it clearly is. Another issue is Joy-Con drift, which Nintendo refuses to talk about regarding the OLED. And while we obviously can't confirm whether or not drift will be a major issue with the Steam Deck, I can say pretty confidently that if Nintendo aren't talking about it, it's probably not fixed. I mean, they used a LAN port as a selling point for the OLED Switch. If they fix Joy-Con drift, I'm sure they'd have something saying like improved Joy-Cons or something like that, because they're already grasping at straws to show off a LAN port. To be honest, I think that Valve are absolute geniuses for capitalizing on this right when everybody is voicing their concerns over the OLED Switch, and this seems to be a healthy competitor at the very least for Nintendo to maybe step up its game in at least a hardware department. A lot of people give Nintendo slack because they're not trying to compare to the PS5 or the Xbox Series X, but now they can't really say that because this is a direct competitor. This is so similar to the Switch in functionality that to ignore this would be willful ignorance. People will always buy Nintendo for their exclusives, but now if people don't really care much for, let's say, Pokemon, Zelda, Mario, Metroid, Smash Bros, etc., they may pass on the Switch, and nothing speaks better than money. If this does become an issue for Nintendo, or if they do see some sales going down as a result of this Steam Deck, they're gonna have to step up their game, and they will. I do think I'm gonna end up purchasing this thing. If anything, it'll help me as a content creator grind out some of my games when I'm at work in between Let's Play episodes, and it's gonna be nice because it has cloud saves, and it'll allow me to either screen record internally, which is absolutely terrible on the Switch. You can only share your video clips to Twitter or Facebook, or you have to scan a QR code twice to transfer it to your mobile phone, then download it if you don't have an SD card for it. And then on top of that, it only allows for 100 clips, no matter how long they are. And again, 30-second max. So with the Switch, that's also kind of annoying because unless you have an Elgato, which I do have, but I only have a Switch Lite, you can't really use that. So that's another thing that's going to be great. But I will end up probably picking this up because at the very least, I could do a review on it for you guys and let you know my honest thoughts. So let me know if that's something that would interest you as well. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this. This really came up out of nowhere. I wasn't planning on doing this video today, but I am pretty excited for this and I want to see how it'll play out. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. We mostly cover the monster taming genre on this channel. That includes games like Pokemon, like Nexomon, Kindred Fates, Temtem, Shin Megami Tensei, Monster Hunter Stories 2, etc. And we'd love to have you. With that said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.